Hello everybody and welcome back to Bad Luck Garage. So in our last video we had our fun with China Vet, won the hard tire competition. Now it's back to work on our Project Chaos Theory 3rd Gen Camaro build. And today we're putting this shift kit in this transmission and I'm going to show you how to do it, so stick around. What we have here is a Fairbanks transaction shift kit for Turbo 350 transmissions. Now, normally I would be installing a B&M shift kit in this transmission. That's what I've always put in Turbo 350s in the past. This time I wanted to try something a little different, and since this is going to be primarily a strip-only car, I wanted to go with a full manual shift kit. That's going to allow me to get rid of a bunch of stuff that I don't need, kind of simplify things, get rid of the kickdown cable, I think get rid of the vacuum modulator, all that. It's just less stuff to have to worry about. I went with this kit for two reasons. Number one, the price. This kit was only $66, and number two, this is the only shift kit that I really saw that allowed you to have full manual control. Not auto manual, but I mean manual only. You know, according to Fairbanks, this is going to be the equivalent of just having a manual valve body, but of course with no trans brake. We're going to be going with the Stage 4 Pro Street, which is nothing but manual, you know, no automatic features whatsoever. So let's open it up and look at what's in the box. Right off the bat we see, you know, we've got a real nice gasket here, no cork gasket. Something that is kind of different about this kit as opposed to the kits that I'm used to using is you don't have to do any drilling with this kit, guys. Like even in the B&M kits that I've always used, they come with a separator plate and you have to drill the holes to different sizes depending on your application. Well, this one actually comes with two different separator plates, and I believe they have different size holes. So you don't have to drill the holes. You just pick the separator plate that you want to use, and that's it, guys. You know, no drilling required. Here's our springs, a gasket, and I believe that's our modulator valve block-off plug right there. We got our Fairbanks sticker. We'll stick that here in our drawer. Our drawer of stickers that could be put on the vehicle but won't be because they're not sponsoring me. I'm not putting a sticker on this car if you're not sponsoring me. This is our little diverter plate here for, I'm not sure, I might be using the wrong terminology, but I think it's for like dual feeding the clutches. And also, unlike a lot of shift kits, this comes with a filter. We've got our instructions. Now these are the instructions for 3 stages. We have full competition. It says this is for all racing applications and provides maximum performance with manual control shift points when desired. Then you've got high performance street, provides firm positive shifts for full performance street use. Automatic shift features are retained in drive position. We've got 3 is heavy duty, firm shift but not too harsh, improves transmission life. For towing, campers, motorhomes, you get the picture there. Now, that was the primary kit. They have added a 4th stage, and here's the springs and the instructions for that. And that 4th stage, again, is the Pro Street stage, and it is just completely manually controlled. It will not shift on its own. So we have everything laid out here. I've went through the parts list. It looks like we're not missing anything. So we're going to go over here to the transmission, start taking it apart, and I'm going to show you how to put it in. Before we get started, one thing that should be noted is this procedure can be done with the transmission in the vehicle, guys. So don't think you got to pull your transmission to do it. So we're going to refer to our instructions here. Like I said, the Stage 4 Pro Street is a add-on kit. So they did not amend the original instructions. Instead, they gave us this extra sheet for stage 4, and it says, in our quest to build the ultimate valve body, we now include a 4th stage, the Pro Street mode. It allows the Street Turbo Hydromatic to have the feel and control of a manual valve body. Shifts will now be true manual control at all RPMs. The shift pattern remains stock, and engine braking downshift is retained. The first instruction, A, it says do steps 1 through 5. So we're going to go to our main instructions, where step 1 is pretty much, drain the transmission, which we did. Ours has a drain plug. If yours does not have a drain plug, you'll have to just loosen the pan bolts, let one side of the pan come down and kind of drain it that way. It can be a pain. I would recommend either getting a pan with a drain plug, or they do make kits. B&M makes a kit where you can install a plug in your factory pan. But anyway, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to remove all of these 1/2-inch bolts from the pan. Now we'll use a screwdriver to break the seal on our pan. Pull it off. So we're going to use our screwdriver again to remove our 2 screws. And our filter. Go ahead and take our filter gasket off, throw that to the side. I'm going to use my screwdriver and remove our kick down cable spring. And lay that over to the side. We're actually not going to need that for what we're doing. I'm going to remove my valve body bolts. And I'm just putting all these in the pan. Now I'm going to lift my valve body up, and I'm going to pull my manual valve. I'm not even sure what that's called, guys. But the little S pin, I'm going to pull him out of there just like that. Here's our valve body, our accumulator. I'm going to throw it in the pan. I'm going to take the bolts out of our plate here. Now these bolts are all shorter than your valve body bolts, so don't worry about getting them confused. Got that. So now we can throw this in our pan too. Peel my gasket off of here. We're not worried about this gasket. We've got new ones. Throw our gasket over here to the side. Now, if you're in the vehicle, this of course is going to be upside down, so you need to be careful, guys. When you remove this plate, there are going to be check valves under it. So if you're upside down, those check balls are going to come down with the plate. Just be careful not to lose them. You're probably going to be working under a or above a drip tray anyway, so you probably won't lose them, but you might drop them into your drip tray. So here's our old separator plate. I'm not going to throw this away. I'm actually going to clean this up and put it back in the box in case we want to do something else with it down the line. Now we've got 4 check balls. That's what I was just telling you about. We're going to go ahead and take them out for now. The instructions will show you where to put them back. And actually, in every shift kit I've ever used, you've only put one of them back in. I'm not sure with this one, but we'll find out in a few minutes. Here's the part that gets a little bit confusing for me. On the instructions with the Stage 4 kit, it says do step 6 in heavy duty and street. Now this is where I'm confused, guys. Heavy duty and street says no modification is necessary to the vacuum modulator. Competition says we're supposed to remove the vacuum modulator and put in the little plug I showed you earlier. Now why this is confusing me is because in the Stage 4 kit, we shouldn't need the vacuum modulator. It should be just like the competition kit because it's full manual control. So that's why I'm kind of confused about this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assume this might be a misprint. It may not, guys, but for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to remove the modulator and replace it with the little plug. And you know, down the road when we get this thing put in the Camaro, if it starts acting funny, then at that point we'll go back and put the modulator back in. But I really don't see why the modulator would be necessary with the full manual mode, but not necessary with the competition mode. That doesn't make any sense to me. There's actually some water in the transmission. That's not a good thing, guys, but that's from where I washed it. It must have gotten in possibly through the vent on the top of the case. That was just a couple days ago, though. I mean, it should be fine as long as we get it all out. So what I'm going to do is, after I show you this, I'm going to roll it over and let it, you know, drain some more. But same size, guys. Pretty much everything on this thing is a 1/2 inch. So we're going to take our little bracket that holds the modulator valve in and take that off. We're going to pull our modulator valve out just like that. Now there is a little O-ring in there. Let's see what the instructions say about that O-ring. Are we supposed to get rid of it or keep it? It says to install it on special plug. It also says do not remove the modulator valve, which is inside here. You can hear me clicking it. It says do not remove the modulator valve. So we're going to put this O-ring on our little plug, insert the plug into the case, and install the clamp and bolt back up. Here's our O-ring on the modulator plug, putting it right back in the hole that the modulator came out of. And we're putting our clamp back on. And that's what it should look like. So at this point, I'm going to throw away all these gaskets and stuff that we don't need. I'm going to clean up some parts, and then we'll go over to the workbench. I tell you what, guys, I always pick the worst damn time to run out of supplies. So I ran out of carb cleaner. I kind of cleaned up some of the hard parts with in my kerosene bucket out there that I clean parts in. But this valve body has still got some stuff in it. What we're going to do is we're just gonna kind of clean the valves as they come out. I tried to kind of knock some of the fluid out with an air hose, but you know. Anyway, we're just going to move right along. I'm going to tell you, you know, make sure you got plenty of carb cleaner or brake cleaner, whatever you prefer. And whenever I'm installing these kits, I like to just go ahead and clean everything out as best as I can with carb cleaner before I start doing the valve body modifications, and then also blow it out with compressed air. And as I'm going along, I will clean parts too as I'm taking the valves out and whatnot. So anyway, here we go. We go to our stage 4 instructions. It says the next thing to do is do steps 7, 8, and 9 as instructed. So we go to our main instructions. 7, valve body. Place valve body on the bench with the channel side up. That's what we did. It says remove the roll pin holding the 2-3 shift control valve sleeve in place. Remove the sleeve carefully. It may require a little prying with a small screwdriver. Do not raise any burrs during removal. Next, remove 2-3 shift valve spring. Discard this spring and replace it with the red spring. That's this spring right here, supplied with the kit. Note, the small tapered end goes in first. Install the 2-3 shift control sleeve assembly as removed. Align sleeve and reinstall retaining roll pin. Okay, so the 2-3 shift control valve, if we go over here to our instructions, the 2-3 valve is right here. Yep. What I got to do is kind of move the valve, and you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but as I'm moving the valve slightly in and out, the roll pin comes out. So at that point, I really hope this is on camera because I can't see. Let me check. Yeah, we're on camera. So at this point, I'm going to pull the roll pin out, set it aside, and let that go slightly. Set it back down. There we go. I just pushed in and like let it force itself out. So this is our sleeve right here. We're going to pull it out just like that. I'm going to go ahead, wipe it down a little bit while we got it out, like I said I would. If we look in here, shake it a little bit. We've got this valve right here. Here's our old spring that it says to discard. I'm going to wipe this valve off a little. Get some of the old nasty transmission fluid. Our little spring back in here. This goes inside here. This is all like one big assembly, guys. Normally this would come out slow, but I had to use its spring tension to force it out. We're going to take our red spring. We're going to put it back in there. Just like that. Well, I said just like that. And then we're going to put our 2-3 shift sleeve back in. Well, nice and easy. Now, just a note here, guys, when this is going in, this little slot, I hope you can see that, there's a little slot right here. You want that slot to align with your hole right here. I can tell right now it's got a lot more tension on it than it did have. Huh. I'll tell you what, guys, I don't know what the problem was there, but that thing was just not being nice to me. It's just about getting it to, I mean, you got to finesse it, guys. You got to get everything in just the right spot. So anyway, that's in. Moving along to step number 8. Remove the roll pin holding the boost valve sleeve. That's this one up here. Remove the sleeve carefully. Again, this may require a little prying with a screwdriver. Remove the pressure regulator spring and discard it. Replace with the blue spring supplied with the kit. Again, small tapered end goes first. Alright guys, so we're going to do this the same way we did the other one. We're just going to sit here. I got to break it free first. There we go. So what we're going to do is turn it upside down. We're going to sit here and work our valve. It's not working on this one. There we go. Now we're going to sit here and work our valve. There we go. Roll pin's coming out. Hold this in. Pull the roll pin out. This one's got a lot more tension, so we don't have to do any prying on this. So we're going to pull our sleeve out. Looks like our boost valve stayed in this one. Oh, no, that's just the inner part. It's got to go back in there. We'll worry about that in a second. Got to get our spring out and the rest of our valve. Just like that. There's the spring that was in it. There's the rest of our valve assembly. I'm going to clean these off real quick. So we got our little guy here. Looks like it's exactly the same on both ends. That needs to go all the way down in here. That's pretty much what I'm going to do. Sit here and wiggle it. Take my little pick, try to align it. Eventually it will drop in, guys. There we go. He's all the way in there. And we got this valve. Goes this way. Get him seated all the way in there. And then we've got our new blue spring. Tapered in goes in first. Just like the last one. And again, make sure your little groove here is aligned with your roll pin hole so it can go through the hole, through the groove. And let's hope this one plays a little more nice than the last one did. This one's under a lot more tension than the last one was, guys. There we go. Oh yeah, that one got to really squeeze down on. There we go. That's in. That one's in. Now we move to step 9. Remove the roll pin that holds the manual low control plug in place. Remove the plug and the manual low control spring. Discard the spring and install the plain spring supplied in its place. Alright, now here's the problem. We have 2 plain springs, but I'm assuming this is going to be called a gold spring. So it's probably this one. So the manual low valve is right here. Same procedure we've been using, guys. Turn it over, shake it, and work it. Sometimes you got to break it loose a little bit first. There we go. Just keep pressing it. You may need to give it a little love tap. Well, this one's being stubborn. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a soft handle screwdriver right there. I'm going to get me a bigger screwdriver and I'm going to hold the plug in and tap. While I'm pressing it. And there we go. You can see the roll pins working out. So now I'll push this in, pull a roll pin out, slowly release it here. And this is just a plug, guys. So all it says to do is pull this little purple spring out. We're going to replace it with this spring, which is super duper stiff. Take our plug, clean some of the grit off of it. We're going to slide it back in. Oh yeah, it's super stiff. And put our roll pin back in. There we go. Manual low valve is in. And take our little purple spring, throw him over here. Now, step 10 is where stuff gets different, I think. Okay, so we're going to D. Again, this is on our stage 4. And D says remove 1-2 shift valve sleeve. We're going to probably be working with these parts now. These are stage 4 parts. Remove 1-2 shift valve sleeve. Keep inner valve and spring inside sleeve. Alright. Now here's the thing. I do not know where the 1-2 shift valve is. Funny story, huh? Alright. But it's like this. This was our boost valve right here. This was our 2-3 valve right here. This was our manual valve. So I have to assume that this valve in between the manual valve and the 2-3 valve is most likely our 1-2 valve. Bearing that in mind, same thing, guys. We're gonna make sure our roll pin's as loose as possible. Flip it over, start shaking it and pressing the button. The valve's starting to come there, or the roll pin. So we're gonna pull it the rest of the way out. Side to side, let that go. I realize you guys can't see what's going on over here very well, but I'm just trying to pull this valve out. There we go. Got a hold of it. Take a little screwdriver, pry on it just a little bit, pull this guy out. We will know in a second if we are in the right place, because we're going to have a spring to replace, I'm sure. Alright, so here's the, I'm guessing this is the 1-2 shift valve assembly. It says to leave all this internal stuff together. Alright, it says remove 1-2 shift valve and measure outermost stem. Alright, so here we go. Here's our 1-2 shift valve. Gonna clean him off a little. It says to measure how long this is. So we're gonna measure it just like that, and it looks like, what is that, 5/8? Yep, a little over 1/2 inch. So that's 5/8. So that valve stem is 5/8 long. It says, if stem is 5/8 long, install yellow cone spring, small side over valve. If stem is shorter than 5/8, install blue spring, small side over valve. Reinstall valve, spring, and sleeve assembly. Okay, well, ours is 5/8 long. So we're going to install the yellow spring. Just like this. We're going to slide him back in there. And we're going to install our sleeve here. I'm choosing to go in all at once like this so that that spring doesn't fall or come out of position. There we go. And we'll push this back in, put our roll pin back in, and the 1-2 shift valve is done. Okay, step G says remove detent control lever and pivot clip and discard these parts. That's your kick down lever and the clip that went in here, guys, that we removed at the very beginning. So that's pretty much telling you you're not going to be using the kick down cable anymore, which makes sense because this is full manual mode. Next, it says do step 10 in competition mode. So we go over here. Step 10 is the 2-3 accumulator, which is this guy right here, this Mondo guy here. So what it tells us to do is put it in a vise to compress it, remove this clip, and remove the assembly. It just shows putting it in a vise like this, compressing it, then you'll just use a small screwdriver to pry this little clip out. I didn't really do that, but anyway, I was able to kind of push it down myself. It just depends on how much dexterity you have in your hands. So anyhow, at this point, we're going to remove this accumulator housing here. And all it says to do, and this is actually an old school trick, is just remove this piston, and then you're just going to put this guy right back in with no piston in it, and put your clip back in, or accumulator piston back in here, being careful not to mess up our seal as we put it back in, just like that. We'll take our little clip and clip it back on. Stick that in there. There we go. And you see we got our piston in there, no spring. And guys, if you're doing like a homemade shift kit for a Turbo 350, that's one of the things you do to make it shift harder, is just pull that out and remove that piston or that spring, you know, if you don't want to buy a shift kit. Moving on. So 11 says scrape off any excess gasket material that may be stuck to the casting surface. It's very important to prevent gasket leaks. Wash the valve body in solvent or gasoline to remove residue. Be careful not to lose roll pins that hold sleeves in place. Step 12 says to clamp this stiffener plate in a vise and run a file over it. Alright guys, so here's the deal. The reason you're doing that is because you are going to be putting this plate right here in between your stiffener plate and your case here in a minute. There is no gasket that goes between this plate and this plate. So what they're telling you to do is make sure that this plate is perfectly smooth on this side, so that when you put this plate against it, it seals. Any kind of internal leakage that happens through here off to the sides or anything is going to cause you some issues. It's going to drop the pressure inside your transmission. You don't want that. So I suggest you do what it says, even if you think that your your separator plate here is special for some reason. Don't take the chance. Just go ahead and do it. Now, I'll tell you right now, something that has me worried is I've never really seen one of these separator plates like this. It's almost like this has been repaired or something. And you see there's a recess on the side that this has to go to. Now, the reason that worries me is because when you line up all the bolt holes perfectly, it looks like our channel here is making slight contact with that dip down area. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I'm worried about this because that could cause pressure to bleed off into this area. Again, I've never seen one of these plates that had these two areas like that. Usually it's just one solid piece of metal, and I don't know, guys, I'm really worried. I think maybe this has been repaired or something, and I don't have an extra, so I'm gonna have to use it. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if we start having pressure problems, that's gonna be the first place I look. And this can actually come off without removing the whole valve body and everything. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. Anybody with any sense would probably just wait to do this and, you know, go buy a new plate. Unfortunately, I don't have any sense, and I'm also trying to make a video for you guys. So then our instructions say to do step 14 in competition mode. So if we go down here to competition mode, it says choose the correct separator plate the competition mode plate has 2 notches. So remember guys, I said this thing came with 2 different separator plates. Well, if you look down here, if you look right here, you can see there's 1 notch in this plate. There's 2 notches in this plate. So this is the plate we need right here. This is the competition mode plate. Now here's where I vary from the instructions a little bit, because the instructions are actually basing this on the transmission still being in the vehicle. It says to lay the plate to case gasket, that's the gasket that goes closest to the transmission, lay it on top of the separator plate. Well, that's because it's going to have you start stacking these and getting it ready to set it up into the transmission. We don't have that problem because we have the transmission flipped upside down. So what I'm going to do is from here on out, I'm going to be doing the opposite order of the instructions. So instead of placing this on here, I'm going to be flipping it over and going ahead and putting it on the transmission. But first, we need to place our check balls. Now, heavy duty and street uses 2 check balls, and it's going to show you what locations to put them in. But we're doing competition, I believe. Do steps 15. Oh, I'm sorry. This is still part of step 14. So yeah, we're doing competition mode. So we're going to do 1 check ball. And again, if you're doing this in the vehicle, you're going to have to put some grease on the check ball to hold it in place. But since we've got the transmission upside down, we can just set the check ball in location 1 right here. Okay, so here's our number 1 check ball location right here. So in my case, since the transmission's upside down, I'm just going to drop it in there. If you're doing this with the transmission in the vehicle, then you're just going to take you a glob of Vaseline or something like that, glop it in there, stick the check ball into it, that'll hold it. Next, we're going to take our case gasket, which is the bigger of the 2 gaskets. We're going to lay it on here, just like this. A little bit of Vaseline will help hold it in place. Now, if you're doing this with transmission in the vehicle, you had already laid this on there. Alright guys, the separator plate. So you would be doing this as an assembly coming up. And when you do that, this middle bolt right here, you would want to run this middle bolt through to hold this in place. But we don't have to worry about that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my separator plate on here and try to get it as close to straight as I possibly can. This is where I'm actually at kind of a disadvantage simply because I don't have my transmission level, so if I let go of it, it's probably going to slide. So I'm just going to actually take a couple bolts. I'm going to make sure things are lined up, and I'm just going to run a couple bolts in here right now just to kind of hold this together. Then I'm going to take our little channeling plate here, our little channel plate, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to set that there. Then I'm going to take our old stiffening plate and set that there. Remember, I said there was no gasket here, guys. That's why it's important you get that plate flat, and that's also why I'm worried about this particular separator plate. And you know, while I've been doing these other steps, I've been thinking, I'm pretty sure I am in fact gonna wait to put the pan on. I'm probably not gonna do that in this video, and I'm gonna go down the road and get a new one of these plates before I do final assembly on this, guys, because I do not want to take a chance of that leaking. So try to get this aligned as best as you can. Put your bolts in, make sure everything's aligned before you tighten anything up. So all I'm doing right now is I'm putting these in finger tight. At that point, I'm going to take these back out that I was using to hold that plate. I'm going to move them over finger tight. Then I'm going to take my Vaseline that you guys know I love so much, and I'm just going to stick it in a couple spots on this valve body to hold this gasket in place. Of course, once again, if you're doing this from underneath the vehicle, then you will be setting this gasket directly on the valve body, so you won't need the Vaseline. There we go. Let's make sure all the holes are lined up. Pay real close attention. We're going to put our valve body on. First, we're going to put our little clip right here. I said we're going to put our little clip right here. And we're going to engage our clip with our manual valve, just like this. There we go. Put our valve body on here. Set him on as straight as possible. Drop a few screws in. We're going to put our detent spring in. Get in there. Get that bolt started. Then we're going to tighten all these bolts to 13 foot-pounds. Then we're going to tighten all the bolts on our plate to 13 foot-pounds as well. Next, we're going to put our gasket on our filter, like so, and install our filter with the 2 screws here. These are both flathead screws, so of course you just use a flathead screwdriver to tighten them up. Just give those guys a little snug. That's all they need. Now the next thing you're going to do is take your gasket scraper and scrape off, you know, any excess gasket material you have on your pan surface here and on your pan, and maybe take some rubbing alcohol and clean all the surface areas, the gasket mating surface areas here. When I'm putting a pan gasket on, what I like to do, I don't glop a lot of it on, but I'll usually take some of this ultra black and I'll just put a I'll just put little drops here and there, and I'll smear it very thin, and that's mainly just to hold my gasket in place, you know, and to prevent like any leaks from pan warpage or anything like that. So here's the deal, guys. This is the pan that was on this transmission. It's beat up pretty good. Someone has also over torqued it a couple times, so there's some raised areas where the bolts are. That's going to cause it to leak. But the main thing I'm worried about is the I've already tightened it up, but the little drain bolt here, it's actually warped inside. And the previous owner before Uncle Ray, what they had done is they had actually put a bunch of epoxy around the drain bolt to get it to stop leaking. So I'm not wanting to reuse this pan. It's the only pan I have right now, so just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to put it on. But in the future, before this goes in the car, I am going to be ordering an aluminum pan, you know, a finned aluminum pan, to kind of try to help with heat and, you know, just to replace this old beat up chrome pan here. So that being said, I'm not going to use any sealant because I don't want to ruin this gasket. So I'm just going to kind of hold it up here and bolt my pan on. And if you are doing a permanent installation, these bolts, once again, they get tightened down to 13 foot-pounds. Okay, so flipping the transmission back over, we have our detent cable that was right here, held in place by this bolt right here. Of course, we're taking that out because we no longer need it. And I have purchased on eBay a detent cable block off. I will put a link to this in the description of the video. So, you know, if you want to buy one of these, it was actually, for what it is, it's kind of expensive. I think it was about $20, but looks like a nice little piece. Spending all that time trying to get the bag open, I just rip a hole in it. But it comes with the little detent here, or the detent block off. Looks like we got some crud around the hole here, but it's got a nice little O-ring on it. So this is just going to go right in the hole here. After looking at what's going on here, looks like we've got our little seal right here. It's just a rubber seal, comes out with a screwdriver. And I believe this guy should go in here now. Yeah, there we go. It's a snug fit. That's a good thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start the bolt to make sure it stays lined up. And then I'll kind of push it in a little bit there. Yep. And I'll just tighten the bolt down and make sure that this is going in even. There we go. Just had to kind of tap it in. Like I said, it's got a little rubber O-ring in there, guys. That should seal as it goes down. I believe that's about as far as it's going to go. So I think we're good. Give it one little snug. Yep, I think that's good. Now the last thing we have going on is these two springs right here. This again is part of the Pro Street Stage 4 kit, and they go in the governor here. So over on the driver's side, we've got this governor plate. Stick a screwdriver in here, and we're just going to try to pry it loose. Just got to keep prying from different angles. A wider screwdriver would help. Let me go get one. The wider your tip is on the end of your screwdriver here, the more kind of leverage you're going to have when you're trying to pry this loose. But if you just keep working it, it is going to pop off eventually here. We've almost got it. There we go. All right. Covers off. Gonna slide our governor out. If you look down in here, you'll see these springs. It says to hold the weights out while you remove these two springs with a scribe or a screwdriver. Of course, I'm using a scribe. You can see how the weights move in there. Get the other one. This one's a little stiffer on this side. Yeah, and guys, these springs and these weights are how you tune these governors on the older transmission. So, you know, chances are, much like mine, yours probably won't have the exact same spring on both sides. This one didn't. This one had two different springs in it. And then we're going to wedge these springs. Uh-oh. We're going to let them go flying. But all we're going to do, guys, is we're going to compact these springs real tight, and we're going to put them in between the weights and the body. And basically what that's going to do is hold the weights out all the time. I'm going to let you watch me fumble with it here. There we go. It's kind of hard to hold it in camera view and do it, but basically I'm gonna get it in here, and then there are little tabs in there. I'm just gonna try to get it in here in such a way like that, yeah, where I know it's not gonna fly out. And see, this weight isn't gonna push in anymore. That's the only purpose of these springs, is just to hold these weights out. So there it is. You can see the weights don't flop at all now. And just a reminder once again, guys, this step right here, this is something that we're doing because we are doing the full manual Pro Street mode with no automatic features whatsoever. So if you're not doing that mode with this kit, you know, this isn't even going to be a step for you. But anyway, we're going to put this right back into the transmission. It's like we got it out. We're going to take our cap here. I'm going to clean this up a little bit first. Now I'm going to put this right back on here and tap it in place with my rubber dead blow here. Make sure it's all the way on. Oh no, I'm scratching the paint. So at this point, we're done installing the Fairbanks full manual shift kit in our Turbo 350 transmission for Chaos Theory, and yeah, that's pretty much it. As always, links to all products used in this video will be in the description, so be sure to click on those if you can use any of those parts. If this video helped you out, make sure you click that thumbs up button, share it with a friend, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up with Chaos Theory or any of the other projects on this channel. Thanks again for watching. Now get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.